Hi, this is Craig, and in this video today we are going to remix a song that I thought we were finished with. We've been recording a song from start to finish called Kenny's Song. I did the mixing, I did the mastering, listened to it, lived with it, decided I had to make, we're going to cover, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video, the new mix, the final mix for Kenny's Song. Hi, this is Craig Colley Music. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world, and we are going to review a mixdown that I did on Kenny's Song, a new mixdown. I mixed it, mastered it before, thought I was done, but it's really important to live with the song and maybe walk away from it for a while and come back to it a few days later. And once I did that, I actually gave it a week. There were several things I thought could be improved. So I've done a whole nother mix on this, and we're going to get into it right now. If you're here joining me for the first time, please subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed so far, that's the world telling you maybe you're back again. Please subscribe. That'd be great. First of all, this is the track window in Digital Performer. As you know, you've been following this series. This is what I use for track. This is actually the master track that I've already mixed. I'm going to review just what I have changed on the song since last time. And it wasn't a lot, but sometimes just those little things make such a huge difference. And I'm going to start with the piano. The only thing I did in the piano was just reduce the reverb at the beginning just slightly because it was a little too much. And in this automation here, I selected C, which is the level. I reduced the amount of reverb that goes into this second computer. This is a Mac Mini that has reverbs loaded up on it. And it's got a Abbey Road chamber, Abbey Road plate, a reverb through East-West Sounds, an enhancer through MOTU, and delay through MOTU, and chorus through MOTU. Only thing I'm really using is the reverb, and this is the master fader. The reverbs take so much of the CPU power, that's why I usually and route it back into the mixer, just to keep some of the pressure off of the main mixer, which is here. Not too much in the detail of that right now, but if you have any questions about that, just put it in the comments and be happy to answer what that means. So this is the beginning here of the piano, and this was the level right here, the C level here, which I'm clicking on here. Actually, it's showing in two places. I'll turn that off to make it less confusing. And when the piano starts, when I stop it, you can hear how much reverb's on. I'll do that again. So that's how much is on there. Because the song starts with, incidentally, if you're here for the first time, you might want to go back and click this card here and review all the other videos leading up to this point. I think we're on probably the 21st, 22nd video, so I've really gotten into the detail of how to do this. But when the rest of the band comes in, then this reverb, you can see it's highlighted in the yellow here, is turned down a little bit. So when it's in with the band, less reverb. There's some other effects on that, so it's a little hard to tell. So that's the only thing I did in the piano. Once again, I covered in the prior mixing video all the detail. This is just the changes that I made to make this video a lot quicker, and you're going to see what a difference this type of treatment makes to a mix. And because you can actually listen to the old mix on the other video compared to the mix on this one. The only other thing I did next on was on the bass guitar. I added a little bit more punch here in this 1K area and a little bit in this 50 area here. Rolled took this roll off just a little bit less. I wanted a little more bottom on the bass. The EQ here, I have a second EQ, and they're all going to my other screen. I can move them over. I pumped up this, and I rolled off the bottom a little bit more on this one. It depends on, sometimes it depends on the key. Sometimes the key that you're working in doesn't have as much depth as maybe another key. Maybe G has more than E, or D has less than A. So this key is in E. So I need a little bit more bottom for the warmth of the song, which I noticed was really lacking in the last mix. It wasn't terrible, but just a little bit more will make a big difference, even at least to my ear. Then I've got this CLA 2A, and I didn't touch that. That's still working fine the way that it was. And I also have the submarine setting, which gives me really a lower octave below. And I'll solo the bass right here so you can hear the bass guitar. Now if I turn this CLA off, it's added a lot. So once again, I'm only tweaking what I had already done before. The video prior to this will give you all the information in depth on the plugins and so on. So that's what I did on the bass. Then next we go to the drums. The drums I made quite a few changes on. First I increased the level of the drums and also the level of the comp, which is the snare, tom, and kick, snare, and tom combination in one channel. And I put a different plugin on that. I put this CLA drum plugin on it, and I used the snare setting, and I'll play a little bit of that with that on and off. Solo the drums. That's with it off, on, and really just listen primarily to the snare drum. It just brings a lot more presence into it, and that helped a lot to have that snare. The snare was kind of getting buried, and that just gives a little more edge to the snare. Even though this plugin is set up where it's really designed to go on every channel for each instrument. So when you use it kind of for an overall comp sidechain, you have to choose which one's going to be the best fit. And I went between the toms, kick, and snare, and the snare was the best fit. I really didn't change any of the settings here. Chris Lord Algae has done a lot of work on preparing them, so his idea is you just plug it in and it works. This is through Waves. But I have done a lot of work with all these plugins and have separate videos on the plugins themselves, but this isn't for that. I'm just showing you what I did to tweak the sound. And also on the overheads over here, I put an API 550A on, and I'll play that again with the cymbals. The cymbals and the ride. Now this is with it on, off, on, off, on. It just brightened everything up a little bit. Also on the overheads, there's just a slight bit of reverb that's going into this module here, and this actual plugin is, like I said, through East-West. This is Spaces 2. This is fantastic reverb, but it is a CPU hog, just like the Abbey Road plugins. They just take up so much bandwidth. You can see here how much they're taking. And if you put that in combination with your regular DAW, in my case, my computer doesn't have enough horsepower to operate it all. That's why I use a second computer. Kind of the pain in the butt, but that's what it is for right now. Get that out of the way. Maybe I'll have a new computer one of these days, but not today. And actually, speaking about that new Mac M1 chip that is out in some of the versions, there's probably a new M1X coming out and maybe an M2, but some of the software hasn't caught up to it. Like I use Digital Performer, as you know, and at this point, you couldn't use the new computer with Digital Performer, so it's kind of worthless. But once that changes, everything should operate fine from one computer and not have to gang them up anymore. So other than that, on the drums, there was just an increase in the side chain, the kick, snare, and toms, a little bit more on the overheads, and the overall drum mix was brought up just a little bit. Then we go to the acoustic guitars. The only thing I did there was boost the Gibson and Martin guitars just slightly on their own there. Just brought that level up a little bit because they just weren't cutting quite enough. Now if I put that on along with the drums, one thing I want to point out is that I've got the hi-hat. I got the hi-hat over here, and I got the acoustics here. If they're together, they're sharing the same frequency, so it's hard to identify them. So I usually want to have them opposite or split really wide in the acoustics, because there's so much going on in this song that I ended up panning the two guitars together and then separating the hi-hat on the other side. So that's what I did with the acoustic guitars. Nothing else was changed there. So now we're moving on to the electric guitars. So first is the Telecaster, which is in this track. I had made a couple changes. I had this section right here where this is a kind of a chinking part on the downbeat. You'll hear it, I turned it up. Solo that so that's a little clearer. So what it didn't work with it without it in the track here where it would normally gone. I should also point out this is what's happening with this guitar as well, is that it is also playing in tandem with this capoed guitar. Which is panned to the right. Oops, faded out there and back up a little bit. Faded out to the right, and the Telecaster's on the left. So this is the capoed right here. It's playing arpeggiated chords. And you can see this is the volume. They both are going down at this spot. And this is what it sounds like when they both fade down. Having them both up at that spot just was too much going on to hear the piano melody and then the counterpoint with the two acoustic guitars. Now you're going to see that they're going to come up again in this area here. They're back in there. Now on this Telecaster track here, this is the master track for this group here, so this is the pan, and the pan is over on the left side, but when this section comes around again, it's called the C minor section. I have it up this time, but I panned it all the way to the other speaker. Hear it here. Now you can hear it over here. And the reason is the piano is not dominant anymore. The two guitars are, or I should say three guitars, the two acoustics and the electric. So there's room for it this second time. And also the two acoustics are doing a harmony on it as opposed to this section where they're just doing the melody solo, no harmony. Piano, and then this is the part with the guitars. Gives room for that Telecaster part, which I like, so I put it in that section there. Then the pan goes back to the other side because the capoed acoustic here is already on the right side, so I want them doubled there. So I brought it back, and you hear it go back to the other side. Very simple. Solo that so you can hear that. And that's the beautiful part about the animation, is that it does all that work for you once you programmed it that way. Back it up and you can watch the pan. Back a little bit more. You're going to watch it. This is the pan on it going back to the other side. There it goes. So like I said previously, once you've done all these automated moves, your final mix is it's done for the most part. There's not much to do. Okay, so that is that guitar part. The second part is the layered Stratocasters, which I had 2 of them, but I ended up using just 1 because it was too much and it was too muddy, and there was enough going on. So it comes in very obviously here in this third verse. So you're going to hear that over here. Let me solo that. So in the song, put it back, you'll hear it now. Now you know where it is. Now it goes out here, leaving room for all of this. If I left it up, like if I did this, you'll hear how muddy it gets. Undo that. Now listen. So those are the things that are good examples. Some of the things that are really important, not to just put everything in because you recorded it that way. Even though I had 2 guitar parts on a lot of these areas here, multiple instruments, you can see I'm eliminating a lot more than I'm using in some spots, just because it gets too overwhelming. This is a big song with lots of stuff going on, and part of this song is, be it a tutorial so you can learn by it and experience it, but this is part of the process, is weeding things out that make it too much. And that's what happened in the first mix. There was just too much going on, and I was probably still in that mindset of, I recorded it all, I want to use it all, and so I'm taking my own advice and taking some of it out. So that's what's happening with the second electric guitar. Third electric guitar is still the same, nothing changed there. It introduced at this spot right here. You'll see this is where it comes in. Actually, I did do one thing on that. The very end of the lick right here where it kind of slides down, I pulled that down because even that competed with the melody coming in. That's without it pulled down. This is with it pulled down. Once again, with it up, not pulled down. And with it pulled down. Little things like that are huge, because they keep the song rolling without something happening. Go, whoa, what happened there? Or that's too much, or that kind of philosophy. If that's philosophy, I don't know. So that's it on the electric guitar parts. That's the only change there. The next part was looking at my notes here, a tambourine part, which was down here. I just increased the overall volume of it, the whole thing, slightly. That was all I did on that. And that's what I did to the whole song. Now, on the mix side of it, because this is all going through a simulated 2 plugins, one that's simulating that the whole mix is going through a Neve board, and it's getting pushed a little bit of drive, which I didn't touch that, I left that. But this CLA mix main bus, I pulled the drive down just slightly because it was overdriving it's meant to overdrive the board to give it more harmonic distortion and a little more color, but it was distorting some of the instruments a little bit, and particularly in the piano at the beginning. So I pulled that back. That's the only difference in that section of it. So all in all, that is how the song changed. And then when I went to play the final copy, it records back into itself through a return bus over through the main mixer and records this track here, which I'll solo that. Now we're listening just to that main mix. So the next step is now we're going to take this master track and I'm going to move it into the mastering section. One last thing to note is that I mix everything at -2. So I don't have any big peaks. I can always boost a little bit. These are recorded clean enough. I can still bring them up to make them louder. But overall, I found that with digital equipment, there is no window where you can push it and saturate the tape. It hits the wall and crunches. Same with your computer CPU. It just gets to a certain point and just can't handle it. So to avoid that, I always have these levels just a little bit lower. So that's why that mix sounds a little bit lower. But we're going to compensate for that in the mastering. So the way I do that, and I don't think I showed this in the last video, this has a sequence here with this track here, and it becomes an audio track. It's a WAV file. So I go down to my list of sound bites, and I know this is going to be the last one because I just did it. This is mix 23. So I'll select this and I go to reveal it in Finder, which brings up this window here, a couple of windows here. This is mix 23, the mix I just did. So I copy that mix and I bring it over into a folder where I've got all my mixes for the final mix of Kenny's song. So I plug that in there, paste it, and now I'm going to rename this, because I've done mixes before. I'm going to copy this name here, paste this in here, and I'm going to put it as number 5. And this identifies that this file is the mix down with the Neve and the CLL settings that I had in this window here, which they only go on at the very end. I only mix through them at the very end, simulating the boards, because I want the other mixes to be just on their own, and then we enhance as we go along. So now I've got that. I'm going to save this, what I've done here. And now I'm going to open up the mastering. Okay, so now I've opened up the mastering sequence, and as you can see, I've already done 4 tracks already. I'm going to duplicate that track. I'm going to call this mix 5. And I'm going to delete this here. And now I'm going to drag in that file I just renamed, which is this one here, mix 5. Now this is converting a 48K file to a 44.1K file. You see the conversion happening there, because I'm mixing down to CD quality, or 44K. I record in 48 because some of the other peripherals that I use require 48 for it to work, especially if I'm syncing to an ADAT. And sometimes I've used an old ADAT just as another source of digital inputs, not even using the tape, but using the AD converters if I needed some extra tracks, because it has 8 of them and plugs right into my interface, and it works quite well through the optical. I haven't used that in a long time, but that's the only reason that that's one of the main reasons that I do that. All right, now this new track is in. Now I've already done some tweaking on the actual Abbey Road mastering software here. I'm going to bring in this window as well, and I'm going to play it. So the only thing I've changed since the mastering mix is I boosted a little bit more on the low end here, and also boosted the output, because I wasn't getting quite enough of gain and a loud enough signal. I wanted this thing to be about -12. So I'm going to advance up a little bit, get more band sound. So you see I'm in the 12 to 11 range. This is the short-term peaks, and that's optimal for what I'm going to be using it for. And I still have the spreader at the same spot. The only thing I changed was I just boosted it from 2 to 4 here. In fact, I'll play it, see if you can hear the difference. Don't know if you'll be able to tell or not. That's on 2. That's on 4. And then my output here was a little bit hotter. I also have this set of meters that come with the Abbey Road studio. And they're really indicating what's going on with this module here, not this overall, because this is happening after the chain is the mastering software, the VU meter, and then this Waves WLM meter. So this is the last part of the chain just showing me levels. And also, the levels also being indicated through the actual software here as well. For all the streaming services and mainly how we use music now, this is a happy medium. I don't mix for all the different streaming services. I know it sounds a little bit different here and there, but particularly for this exercise, if this was a massive commercial release of some sort, I may master it differently for Apple Music versus Spotify versus Amazon and so on. But in this case, this is a good benchmark, and it works pretty well throughout. The mastering's pretty simple because the mix down is so close to begin with. This just embellishes a little bit. I'll play it and turn it on and off so you can hear the difference. And then on. Off. So it's dramatic. Then the final step, once I have that in place, is I take the sequence and I select just the one that I have. Oh, I forgot one last thing here. One of the reasons I duplicate the track is I've already drawn in the fade at the end by duplicating the track previous to it. So I'll pull this over and line it up here, and then it will fade out automatically because that's already been drawn in. So you hear the fade here. And then when I go to master it, I bounce it in real time, save it to I save this as mix 5. And because I can do this in real time listening to it, I always listen to it as it bounces out as well. And I'm going to choose a folder, and I've got the right folder selected. So now we're going to listen to the final mix. It's not going to be very exciting, but I want you to hear it and have this version, second verse, final mix. Hopefully this is it. I'm really, really hoping that it is. It's been a long journey, but this is the final mix, mastered track being exported for our next step, which is going to be marketing. So here we go. Now, at this point, then I will go to the folder that I have done the mixes in. Minimize this and find it. There we go. And now this comes in as Mastering Kenny Song 5 here. So what I do is take one from before, and I have these little kind of code names that I use. Once these are going to be used when submissions to streaming services, they're named differently, but this is what I use for my own mix. And then on the Mac, I can just highlight it, click it, and it will play. Not that I'm going to do this now, but normally I would listen to the mix and make sure everything's good. And once again, I'm doing this through headphones in this scenario here. But for the most part, use speakers, and I use a combination of all the different speakers that are in the previous videos. So we are finally there. I think I'm going to be satisfied with this mix. And thank you for joining me in this journey as we've taken this song from start to finish. And now the hardest part comes, is marketing this thing, getting it out there, and hopefully someone will like it and want to buy it. That's the whole idea with your music, to commercialize it, to make it retail ready. And the exercise of this, not that this is an EP or an album, a single, this is just going to be representing just the process that we go through for the marketing phase, now that it's ready to do that, which will be in the next video. So stay tuned for that. That'll be some of our final episodes in recording this song, Kenny's song, from start to finish. Once again, the story is about a friend of mine that I used to play music with that unfortunately passed away and had a tragic accident, and I just sat down and this song came out when I heard the news. So it's dedicated to Kenny Nugent, which is his name. And I've been living this song, seems like, for months. But thank you for joining me. If you're here for the first time or you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Please leave a comment. Please share the video with others. And if you like the channel, please share it with anyone you can. If you have questions about anything that I'm doing, I'm always available to answer your questions. If you are interested in any kind of one-on-one coaching or consultation to speed up the process, you can see I also use a lot of technology in this room. I've got an 8-channel video switcher that I have integrated into the system as well. So I can help you all sorts of ways, and that's what I'm here to do. And I look forward to doing that. So thank you for joining me. This is Craig from Craig Colley Music signing off, and we'll see you in the next video, which will be marketing a song from start to finish. Take care. And it's my job to turn everything off since it's just me, again, you and I hanging out. So see you later. Bye.